guys? How are you doing today? I hope you are all doing very well. I am wearing this Evanescence t-shirt with Amy Lee's beautiful face on it. I got this shirt forever ago, and I cut the sleeves so that it's got my, little signature off-the-shoulder thing going on, because I do be loving my off-the-shoulder top. So, it's been a little while since we checked in on our dear friend Anastasia, or Lexity, or as most of you probably know her as Anyathena. So those of you that have discovered me through my more recent videos, which, hi, how are you? About 3 months ago now, I did a 2-part video series on this person, Anyathena, or Lexity. In the first video, I basically just delved into Anastasia, as a person, how she came to be as a creator, what kind of creator she is, the lore, pretty much, just about that. And in part 2 of that video series, I went really in depth in discussing some of the allegations surrounding Anastasia. In particular, 3 people came forward with allegations, everything from verbal abuse to literally SA. And since then, a lot has transpired. I've been getting a ton of different DMs and comments on my videos asking me to do an update on Lexity, since it seems that she just continues to descend into her world of madness and atrociously awful hot takes, yet somehow still continues to grow her platform, which I'll admit absolutely baffles me. And so after I uploaded my Peach Aura video, I think on, July 3rd? Yes, I think I uploaded it July 3rd. I had started working on an updated video on Lexity. And while I was working on this video, a very disturbing revelation came to light. Because on July 8th, Anastasia was arrested. Yeah. And if you want to know what she was arrested for, you're gonna have to watch this video. So those of you that have not watched part 1 and 2 of my Lexity series, I strongly urge you to go and watch those videos before you watch this one. And look, I understand if you don't want to have to watch 2 other hour-long videos before watching this video. I get that. I mean, I don't fully get that because I am the kind of person that likes to go down rabbit holes, but I understand why everyone doesn't. Part 2 of that video series is especially important. I worked with all 3 of the victims to ensure that their stories were told as accurately and sensitively as possible, and those allegations are going to be relevant again in this video, as well as references to some of Anastasia's previous controversies we covered in part 1 of that series. I will only be briefly touching on these things as they become relevant throughout this video. I will not be going super in depth, and some of that missing context may make this difficult to follow. So while I do understand not wanting to do all of that, that's fine. Just understand that this video, certain parts of this video may be a little confusing if you're not already aware of everything surrounding this individual. And FYI, trigger warnings, there will be brief mentions of SA, abuse, coercion, misogyny, racism, transphobia, and alcohol use, so do keep that in mind. And with all that said, let's see what Anastasia has been up to. So, brief introduction. Anastasia, Lexity, Anyathena, etc. is a 26-year-old transgender woman and influencer with over 300,000 followers on Instagram and over 150,000 on TikTok. Her content mostly centers around mental health related subjects, political opinions, and, the occasional crash out live stream or post. She lives in her van, which she raised $30,000 in a GoFundMe to purchase, and is unemployed and relying on social media for her income. So in part 1, when we discussed Anastasia's lore, we left off with Anastasia living in her van and in a polyamorous relationship with a person who she referred to as a sugar mommy.
Hey sweet pea, so this is my van as it stands right now. Look, I have a floating desk and I have a permanent microphone stand. I got a griddle. Yeah, things are going really well. I have a pupper right here. I've been playing Red Dead, if you can see that. Ooh, I got a little fluffy thing. Everything's going wonderfully. I have a home, too, as well, like an actual house, like a physical house with property. I've been planting trees and starting a garden, because I have a partner. Like, I'm in a polyamorous relationship with a woman who I love very much, and she owns a house, so I live there. Yeah, I have a lease there even, because I needed a proof of address in order to get a new ID. So I have a lease at my partner's house. You know, it's like a month-to-month lease, so whatever. But it's really, really nice to have a sense of security and, you know, like people who love me and dogs that love me, because I got my pupper. I hope you're having a wonderful life and a wonderful day and a wonderful everything, because you deserve it. A beautiful thing.
And as it turns out, this sugar mommy is a woman named Sarah who is in her mid-30s and even has a child. Sarah is supposedly an accountant who was also a moderator for Anastasia's Twitch live streams, who went by this username I'll put up on the screen. Now, something to note, while we do very much have confirmation of this person's existence, as well as their relationship to Anastasia, we don't technically have proof of them having a child or being an accountant. And the reason why that is because Anastasia has continually recently began filing copyright claims in her Reddit page, getting multiple pieces of evidence taken down, including live stream footage and clips and her own content. And as a result, when you look in her Reddit page, a lot of users have had to either transcribe content or post it in a commentary format, which can be difficult and time-consuming, and has overall led to less direct evidence being posted. That said though, if you do your own research on this individual, there are many conversations regarding this person, Sarah, and information about her as well as her relationship to Anastasia. And additionally, I do have sources of my own who I have spoken to, who have closely followed Anastasia as well as the progression of their relationship, who have confirmed these details to me. These sources are reputable and they have provided me credible information as well as evidence in the past while working on my video series. Therefore, I do personally believe this information to be credible and accurate. But that said, we can technically only confirm the existence of this individual and their relationship to Anastasia. So just do keep that in mind. You know, these are ultimately my personal opinions based on my sources, and obviously if this information turns out to be false, I will acknowledge that and correct that. But we're not going to be discussing Sarah too much yet, as for now she's just kind of existing in the background. But this individual will become very relevant much later on in this video, so just keep her in the back of your mind for now. So we'll just follow the timeline and pick up where we left off in part 1. So March 27th, she made a post regarding the topic of abuse, and once again defending the fact that her behavior is not abusive.
Hey, sweet pea. So I've noticed that users have a tendency to shift the blame of their abuse off of themselves and onto the person they abuse by blaming them for being too emotional. And a lot of people fall for that because people inherently have a bias towards distrusting more emotional people. They think it's immature or lacks composure. And the problem with that is that people often get upset when they've been abused, right? Someone taking advantage of you or neglecting your emotions repeatedly often makes people visibly upset. And someone being visibly upset isn't inherently abusive. Right? Like someone being visibly angry or visibly sad around you isn't inherently abusive unless they're doing something manipulative or abusive. Just because you're intimidated or triggered or you have to empathize with the fact that they're hurt doesn't mean that they're manipulating you, right? That's just a normal part of human emotions and human interactions, right? People being angry and people being sad, even visibly so, is valid. Yeah? I love you.
The problem with this is that she's not only attempting to minimize her actions, but is also refusing to acknowledge that she has literally described her own behavior as abusive.
You called it abuse yourself? Okay, it's abusive behavior, but that doesn't make me an abusive person. Like I made a mistake. Yeah, sure, okay? That doesn't make me an abuser. Yeah? Like an abuser is someone who has a pattern of abuse that they repeat, not makes a mistake once and does something that was abusive. Like, there's a difference.
She says that someone being upset or visibly upset isn't inherently abusive, which, no, it isn't, but how you choose to express that is and has been abusive. And the situation she is likely referencing here is actually the first person who came forward with allegations against Anastasia, named Marcella. Marcella had been following Anastasia online and came across a viral video of Anastasia in a state of desperation and asking for a hug.
Hey, sweet pea, so sometimes when people ask you to hang out, it's because they need someone, and I have been alone for so goddamn long, everybody just stares at me, and most people don't like me because I'm trans and punk, and nobody wants to be around me. I need someone in my life who will just spend 10 minutes to give me a hug. Ever! God damn.
And Marcella offered to be that hug for her, as well as offer her a place to stay for a little while. They ended up having, a more intimate romantic connection, and, unfortunately, that was short-lived. Because it was not long before Anastasia revealed her dark side to Marcella, despite Marcella going out of her way to help her. Anastasia had gotten drunk, and she's an alcoholic, by the way, screamed in Marcella's face for hours, cursed at her, called her a whore, did a spitting motion towards her, and by the way, remember that spitting detail, because believe it or not, that actually might be a pattern of behavior. More on that later. The situation is a lot more than that. Again, I highly, highly, highly encourage you to watch part 1 and 2 of my Lexity series so that you have the full context and understanding of the situation. But following that, Anastasia made multiple videos as well as live streams attempting to defend her behavior by blaming Marcella for her outbursts and describing her own behavior as abusive, saying, quote, "Abusive behavior doesn't make me an abuser."
You called it abuse yourself? Okay, it's abusive behavior, but that doesn't make me an abusive person. Like I made a mistake. Yeah, sure, okay? That doesn't make me an abuser. Yeah?
I hate to burst your bubble, Anastasia, but, abusive behavior actually does, in fact, make you an abuser, especially when it's a consistent pattern of behavior, which it is. You can be sad. You can be angry, but you can't scream at someone for hours while they're curled up in a fetal position on the floor, begging you to stop screaming at them. You can't call them a whore. You can't spit on them. That is abusive. Moving on, we have on April 1st, she made a post stating she regrets the tattoos that she did on herself.
Hey, sweet pea. So this is a really hard video for me to make. It's definitely going to hurt my pride, but all of this, it's incredibly childish, and it's definitely gonna have to go. I really have no idea what I was thinking, just scribbling on my arm and
No, I'm not joking, actually. She bought a tattoo gun and tattooed her own arm in her van, her unsanitary and definitely not sterile van full of fiberglass and wood shavings because she was renovating it.
Hey, sweet pea. So I don't know who needs to hear this, but you can actually just decide what looks good. Nobody has to agree with you. You don't have to ask anyone's permission. You can just do whatever you want to your body. I mean, it's your body. Why would it matter to anyone else but you how it looks? So don't let anyone else's idea of what a good aesthetic is get in your way of what you think a good aesthetic is. Just go ahead and scribble on yourself if what you want is scribble. Just what I do, at least. I love you.
For a split second, I thought we were finally getting some self-awareness and personal growth. But turns out it was an April Fool's joke, so, yeah. That was disappointing. But just something to know, Anastasia does eventually acquire a dog that she named Artemis, who ends up living with her in her van. And this was supposedly a gift from her partner, Sarah, and many people have expressed concern for the dog, not just wondering if its needs are being met, but also the exposure to fiberglass and wood shavings in the van. And the name Artemis is actually a reference to a big piece of Anastasia's lore known as the Apollo dog incident. Quick summary. Anastasia was living with a previous partner, and their neighbor's dog had spent a lot of time with them. Anastasia had grown very attached to the dog. She named the dog Apollo. She went to the store to get supplies for the dog.
Hey, sweet pea. So I'm not exactly sure what I'm supposed to do if a dog keeps choosing to come over here rather than be at its owners, because this dog, this big guy right here, he really seems to love it here. Now, I can try and get him back to the neighbor's house where he comes from, but he certainly doesn't like going there. seems a bit skinny. Although he responds better to praise than food, which is, well, I don't know. Makes me like him, but is worrisome. If the owners come over here and try and take him back, well, he doesn't want to go with them. He seems to really dislike them, which I don't like. And I'm not trying to steal anyone's dog, nor am I trying to start problems with my neighbors. But I love this little guy, and I would not like to see him hurt, and he seems to like it. What do you think?
She claimed she was told that she could keep the dog, but turns out that wasn't really true. And the dog ended up being rehomed to another family or place that could provide for the dog. And Anastasia had multiple meltdowns as a result of this because she couldn't keep her neighbor's dog.
Hey, sweet pea. So I'm back at the place I used to live, and someone here is trying to gaslight me into thinking that the problem with why I lost the dog was that I didn't make it clear enough that I wanted Apollo in my life. But I got kicked out of my home because I made such a big fuss about wanting my goddamn dog back because they stole my dog from me, because they promised me I could have a dog, because this dog kept following me around and asking for love. And you know what, honestly, I don't know why. Maybe it's some sort of intimidating energy I have, which I can understand, but I have to initiate all the relationships in my life. You know, that's fine, that's fucking fine, but this dog for once actually wanted me. It was lovely to feel wanted for once. It was amazing. They stole that from me. I went to the store after they said that this dog was gonna be rehomed and got my hopes up, freaking picked out a name to get for the dog, supplies, you know? Came back, dog was nowhere to be seen, they wouldn't let me have the dog back, you know? I spent all night fighting with my partner because they wouldn't let me be mad at the landlord even. They wouldn't even let me be mad about not being allowed to have my dog, right? So, like, I spent all night fucking working with that, and eventually I stopped fighting with that and went to sleep, and I woke up and I was really mad about not having my goddamn dog! You know? And that's why I got f***ed out. Because I screamed like this about wanting my dog back. You know what? And I'm not sorry. I want my goddamn dog!
And Artemis is actually the twin sister to Apollo in Greek mythology. Hence the name choice. More you know. Moving on. April 6th. She posts a reel stating she is happy in her current relationship, aka Sarah.
Hey, sweet pea. So my favorite part of being in a relationship is getting to borrow my partner's clothes, other than, like, mutual affection and support. I mean, that shit's overrated. But getting to borrow cute outfits, that's amazing. And this entire outfit was given to me by my girlfriend. And considering it didn't really fit her, it'd be a shame to throw it away when it fits me so well, don't you think? She also did my makeup while she was at it. I hope having a wonderful day.
But as I've already alluded to, this relationship, like most other relationships with Anastasia, does not have great plot development. And speaking of relationships, Anastasia gives this take about avoidant attachment and how it's unhealthy.
Hey, sweet pea, so let me ask you a question. Do you think that the best way to learn something is by avoiding interacting with it entirely? And if you answered no to that question, which is the right answer to that question, then why on earth do you think that the best way to get better at romantic relationships is by avoiding romance entirely? That doesn't make any sense. Humans get better at things that they try to do. And if you don't try to do a romantic relationship, you're not going to get better at it. Just because you can do friendships doesn't mean you can do a romantic relationship. They're different kinds of attachment. And being good at one doesn't mean you're necessarily good at the other, right? Like, yeah, you need friends in order to have a healthy romantic relationship. But you also probably need a romantic relationship in order to have healthy friendships, unless you're arrow ace. Like, humans inherently form and romantic connections with the people around them, and if you're just in denial of that, that doesn't actually change whether or not you form those connections. It just means you're unable to work with the connections that you have formed and unable to engage with them healthily. Like, avoidant attachment isn't healthy. It's not the answer, right? Just trying not to engage in relationships isn't how you heal yourself. I promise you.
So, FYI, I don't know if I've mentioned this yet, but Anastasia has BPD, or borderline personality disorder. I went over that pretty extensively in my first two videos. It's a very, very, very large aspect of who Anastasia is, not only as a person, but also as a creator. I have BPD myself. I am quite familiar with it, and something about a lot of people with BPD, they have a very, very, very strong fear of abandonment. And Anastasia herself has also stated that she has a strong fear of abandonment, hence why she's very quick to lash out in her relationships. And at one point, she even described someone pushing her away as crossing a boundary, which That's not a boundary. That's not a boundary. So I'm very much not surprised that she feels so strongly about avoidant attachment. Something else I want to mention though, she is absolutely wrong about saying you need a romantic relationship in order to have healthy platonic relationships unless you're aro ace. That is objectively not true. And you know, as someone who has chosen to avoid relationships altogether for like little over 2.5 years now, I have many healthy platonic friendships and relationships in my life that are very much fulfilling and meaningful. So then we get a bit of a life update from Anastasia.
So I thought I'd give everyone an update on what's going on in my life. I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma with my partner, who I've been dating for 2 months. I'm parked outside of our home right now, her house, where I have drawers and I'm welcome anytime I would like to be. However, I spend a lot more time in my van because this is my home. I'm comfortable here. I have all my things here, and I spend a lot of time with my dog in my van because I want her to be comfortable here, so that no matter where we go, when I start traveling again after she gets all of her shots, she has a place to feel comfortable and safe and at home, even if we're very far away from my house. I love her very much, my girlfriend, I mean, and my dog, and my life is really coming together, and I am doing amazingly, both emotionally and in every other way imaginable, in fact, actually. I hope you're feeling fantastic. Everything's looking up, except for, like, the government, just terrifying, but we'll deal with that.
So we find out Anastasia is now in Oklahoma. She's still living out of her van and also parked outside of her partner's home that she has access to, so you know, that's good, I guess. FYI though, one of my sources did tell me that Anastasia is supposedly not allowed in the home during the day while her partner is at work, which is interesting. Everyone's entitled to their privacy. I mean, it is her partner's home, right? Don't get me wrong. But I feel like your partner is the one person you should be able to trust in your home when you're not there. So if that boundary is actually true, I do wonder why. I will say Anastasia has been known to break things when she is angry, including a lamp that she broke when she was at Marcella's home. She also punched holes in the wall of her mother's home, which her mother ended up kicking her out as a result. So perhaps it has something to do with that. Obviously, that's just speculation, just my opinion, just my guess. Then on April 9th, she posted a reel which I found extremely ironic and hypocritical.
Hey, sweet pea. So no means no, all of the time, even if I'm laughing. Even if you think my body language means that I'm enjoying whatever you're doing, you should listen to my words, actually. Because I laugh when I'm uncomfortable. So just because I'm laughing doesn't mean I actually am enjoying whatever you're doing. And just because you think whatever you're doing is funny doesn't mean I do. You should listen to my words. No means no.
It's very interesting to me that Anastasia is able to recognize that body language signals are important in regards to consent. Because she very much did not feel that way when it came to Marcy and Haley, the two people who alleged that they were SA'd by Anastasia. And in both instances, Anastasia blatantly ignored their body language signals when making sexual advances onto them, both of which Anastasia has admitted to. And I'm not the only person that picked up on that, because the top comment with over 458 likes states, "Take your own advice." And by the way, Anastasia heavily moderates her social media, especially following my 2 videos on her. So most of the comments you will see on those posts are positive, and she does routinely delete comments throughout her posts. But, don't worry, because I made sure to take screenshots of all of the negative comments that slipped through the cracks. And to expand upon this, on April 12th, she gives a take stating that if someone touches her and she touches them back, it's not a
Hey, sweet pea. So I've experienced a lot of cis women who think that they get to experiment with me and it's not cheating and it's not sexual. It is sexual. And if you grab my butt or my boobs, me reciprocating, that's actually kind of normal. That's a normal human interaction. If you don't want me to touch you, don't touch me. And if you touch me first, I don't have to ask, right? I mean, do I? Because, you didn't ask.
And here she's making a specific reference to Marcy, again, one of the 3 individuals who came forward with allegations against Anastasia. And in this instance, Anastasia had groped Marcy without asking them for their consent. After Anastasia was confronted, she tried to claim that Marcy touched her first, which I do not believe based on my own research as well as my conversations with Marcy. But also, I think Anastasia is very much misunderstanding consent here. Because just because someone may not ask you for consent, doesn't mean you don't have to ask for their consent, right? Like, of course, if someone violates your consent, 100% that's wrong, that's not okay, but that doesn't give you a pass to then violate their consent, you know? And I want to quickly differentiate between this scenario and, reactive, as I think a lot of people are going to compare it to that. And reactive is not the same as choosing to violate someone's consent because, they did it first. And to be completely honest, I have difficulty, wrapping my head around the concept of someone essaying me and then having the thought, well, now I get to essay them. Look, I don't want to generalize essay victims, right? There's no such thing as a perfect victim, and even if you're an imperfect victim, you are still a victim. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm not saying it can't happen. But I've known many essay victims. I have firsthand experience myself, and I'll just say I have never seen that reaction to essay before. I've seen there's flight or fight, there's freezing or tonic immobility, but essaying someone because they essayed you, that that is very new to me. I just wouldn't have that instinct. I don't know. I don't know. I just fighting SA with SA. Again, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It's just very new to me. And especially in this instance where, let's, be honest, Anastasia obviously is not the victim, right? So I don't know. Let me know your thoughts, because I don't know. I don't even know what to think of that. But the comments did not hesitate to point out the irony in this statement, as they made sure to remind Anastasia as well as her cult followers that she has multiple and SA allegations. Also, by the way, Anastasia really emphasizes the fact that, cis women have assaulted her. But Marcy is actually non-binary and goes by they, them pronouns, which to this day, Anastasia refuses to acknowledge and still continues to refer to Marcy by she, her pronouns. Because obviously if Anastasia acknowledges this, then it completely dismantles her, cis women make false allegations against me because I'm trans and all trans people are deemed as predators by cis people argument. But somehow this wasn't enough, because on the same day, she posted another reel regarding the topic of empathy.
Hey, Sweet Pea. So real empathy means understanding everyone's emotions and thought processes, even and especially the people you don't like. Just deciding someone is evil and dismissing their thought process as bad or trying to hurt the world is lacking empathy, okay? People don't just do things to hurt the world. That's not a thought process that makes any sense. And even the worst things are done with a human thought process because they're done by humans. And if you refuse to understand that, you're only doing yourself a disservice. I'm not saying you have to condone everyone's actions, right? Obviously, some actions are terrible and should be condemned. But if you refuse to understand how those actions came about and why people do terrible things, it becomes incredibly difficult and even impossible to address those terrible things and stop them from happening in the future, right? You need to be able to empathize with people who do terrible things in order to help people not ever do those things again, yeah? And deciding people are just evil and dismissing them as trying to hurt the world is lacking empathy, and it's unhelpful. I love you so much.
And these comments made damn sure to remind Anastasia of her extreme lack of empathy towards others, with one comment stating, "Shocking that you think you can speak on what empathy is after your exes have described what you've done to them. Screaming at someone so loud her ears rang while she pleaded you to stop shows a remarkable lack of empathy." Very well said. April 13th, she states she had to get a new phone because someone apparently doxed her.
Hey, Sweet Pea. So check out this bracelet I made for my dog's first collar. She outgrew it, so I cut it a little bit shorter and then I added the studs. It's adorable. Plus, it's a nice little keepsake to remember her puppyhood, don't you think? I had to get a new phone number recently because somebody gave away my old phone number on the internet. And when you have a platform like I do, it's not exactly wonderful to get doxed, you know? So try not to sweat the smallest stuff, even the stuff that's not so small, like harassment, but whatever.
FYI, regardless of how bad of an individual someone is, that is not an excuse to dox dox someone. Doxing is never okay and absolutely illegal. And, things like this unfortunately give people like Lexity more ammunition against her critics and therefore makes it easier to discredit them. So if we could not stoop to illegal means and instead hold her accountable by reasonable means, such as things like this video, that would be spectacular. On April 14th, she turned 26. Top comment makes sure to remind her that everyone is finding out about her SA and allegations. And by the way, there's a reason why I'm making it a point to mention all of these comments on her posts. I read something in Anastasia's Reddit page recently where a person was expressing their frustration over the fact that Anastasia's platform has continued to grow, and she's been completely immune to cancellation regardless of her actions. And I very much understand where they're coming from because they aren't wrong. Anya's platform has only continued to grow since my 2 videos, but that doesn't mean that people aren't aware. Anastasia is working overtime to moderate her social media so that none of this information gets further exposure. But even so, many comments have and still continue to slip through the cracks, getting anywhere from hundreds to even thousands of likes each. So my point is, don't be discouraged. It's a gradual process, but I very much believe she will reap what she sows soon. It's only a matter of time, and I will continue to make posts and videos calling out Anastasia. Look, I rarely call for canceling or deplatforming on my channel. I do have a lot of opinions. I criticize people, obviously, but I do believe in personal growth. I do believe people can redeem themselves from their mistakes most of the time. A few people seem to think that just because I talk about or cover someone on my channel, that means I'm trying to cancel them. Someone got mad at my Peach Aura video saying that I was trying to cancel her and she's not, bad enough to need to be canceled, and they were comparing her to Lexity and saying she's not a horrific like Lexity, which is odd because I never said that I was trying to cancel Peach Aura. Honestly, that's not really my call, as most of her more egregious actions don't affect me, as I'm not part of the group of people that those actions were targeting. But Anastasia is the one person who I have explicitly stated needs to be deplatformed, needs to be canceled. She has and continues to weaponize her platform, spreading extremely harmful and dangerous narratives about abuse and abuse victims, not to mention using her platform to take advantage of more and more people. She further stigmatizes BPD and, more recently, has committed very heinous acts. And until that happens, until she is deplatformed, I will continue to talk about this on my channel because this is not okay. This is not acceptable. Okay, so April 17th, this one is slightly confusing. She posts this reel that she disabled her comments on, which she does pretty frequently, by the way.
Sweet pea, have you ever asked someone a question that they are incapable of answering, and because they're incapable of answering, they get mad at you as if it's your fault? And the reason they're really getting mad is because the question is something that is integral to their identity, something that they consider deeply morally important, or they've integrated into their very identity. Oftentimes something religious, and you asking why they believe it, or the way that that belief works and functions, makes them upset because they don't know themselves, and they have to confront the fact that they don't know themselves when a deeply held moral belief that they believe in is questioned. And just because I question your moral beliefs doesn't mean I disagree with them, actually. Maybe I just want to understand them. Did you ever think about that? Because I do. I want to understand all things. And because I am asking doesn't mean I immediately disbelieve it. It means I'm asking. I love you.
Which at first it's okay, so what's the context here? Well, apparently the context is that Anastasia had made a video regarding cultural appropriation, specifically asking why white people can't participate in Native American traditions and cultural practices. Really? Really? Seriously? Really? Are you kidding? Sweet pea, are you kidding me? And when people attempted to educate her, it seems she didn't like that very much, hence why she followed with this reel, stating people are incapable of answering her questions, which she disabled comments on. So, not getting the response you want that validates your point of view isn't reflective of an incapability to answer your questions. It just means you're wrong. And by the way, stuff like this is not new with Anastasia, unfortunately. She not only has said the N-word on live stream, but even called herself the trans Malcolm X. The trans Malcolm X.
Let's sue. Let's sue. Are you serious? Like, sue. Let's sue. Do this shit. If you love me, you will go over there and you will correct everything they're saying and you'll be nice. Like, do you think I'm afraid of the cops? First of all, I'm not afraid of the cops, even if I did do something, and also I didn't do anything. Elaborate on the trans Malcolm X. You're genuinely confused. Oh, because I said that because people keep being like, oh, I agree with what you're saying, but I don't like the way you're saying it. And like, I think that is kind of like a thing that happened a lot to Malcolm X, where people were like, oh, I mean, like, you know, I like what Malcolm X says, but like, couldn't he be like a little bit more civil about it? And it's like, that's what I mean when I say like the trans Malcolm X. I mean, like.
And in the caption of this video, she also states that she will not apologize for epistemology, which my dumbass honestly thought was a made-up word, but it actually isn't. Epistemology is the philosophical study of the nature, origin, and limits of human knowledge. Again, I'm gonna say it. She sounds like a f***ing cult leader. She sounds like a cult leader. She really does. Like, who the hell questions why they can't participate in cultural appropriation and then says, I won't apologize for epistemology? Someone with a major superiority and God complex. That's who says that shit. So April 21st, following part 2 of my video, like just 5 days later, Anastasia drops an absolute bombshell of a take in a video. I'm not even gonna explain it. I'm just gonna play it.
Hey, sweet pea. So you're not gonna like this take, but people can absolutely consent to sex. I was an alcoholic for a long time. I was drunk every single day for like 3 years. I had a lot of during that time, and it wasn't all coercive. I knew what I was doing, and it is not up to other people to determine how drunk I am when they also might be intoxicated, and when I might be concealing how intoxicated I am. Yeah? You need to be very, very drunk for you to not be able to consent. Like, can't really walk or talk straight, right? Like, the kind of drunk where it is impossible for you to conceal how drunk you are. And at that point, yeah, you can't really consent to sex, but there is a large space in between sober and blackout drunk where you were very able to consent and even likely to try to consent just because alcohol makes people. Yeah, alcoholics can absolutely consent, and they regularly do.
And as I'm sure you can imagine, the backlash was swift and heavy. I actually got multiple DMs regarding this very specific reel, as I had just dropped my video regarding the allegations. And Anastasia very quickly disabled comments on this reel, but thankfully a Redditor did a screen recording of some of the comments beforehand, so shout out to the Lexity subreddit. Now, if you're not already familiar with Lexity and your introduction to her is this video, you may be thinking, but wait, people can SA people though, right? And you may also be thinking, you know, well, I've gotten drunk and had consensual with people before. What's the big deal? Well, the big deal is that this is a very gross and deliberate misrepresentation of what actually took place between Anastasia and Haley, which is the girl that Anastasia is specifically referencing here. Haley is a woman that once again had met Anastasia through social media and offered her a place to stay for a little bit. And upon arriving to Haley's home, Haley had been drinking prior. Nothing wrong with that. It's her home, and she is above the legal drinking age. She can drink if she wants to. And Anastasia was aware of this, and as a result, chose to make advances onto Haley, including groping her and sniffing her crotch. And Haley had woken up out of a blackout state to find Anastasia doing these things, and Anastasia would later also attempt to kiss Haley. And when Anastasia finally left, Haley had messaged her after the fact, pretending to be friendly in order to get Anastasia to open up a little bit about what had taken place, and also to find out if other things took place that Haley was not aware of when she was in a blackout drinking state. And Anastasia ended up admitting to groping her and making advances onto her, stating that she knew she was drunk, but she didn't know how drunk and didn't know what the boundaries were. And once Anastasia had confirmed what happened, Haley came forward publicly, and in typical Darvo Anastasia fashion, she attempted to reverse the roles, claiming that Haley got drunk and SA'd her. Again, there's a lot more to that story part 2. Watch my video series. Seriously, there's a whole lot more there, but that's just a very, very brief summary. But yet she only ever claims that she was SA'd after Haley came forward with her allegations, and she did the same thing with Marcy as well. She claims that there's a large space between being sober and blackout where you're still able to consent to sex even if you're intoxicated. First of all, Haley was blackout drunk, but even if she wasn't and she was just mildly drunk, you still admitted to knowing she was drunk and not knowing what the boundaries were. Look, I know there's a little bit of nuance when it comes to alcohol and right? Like, a lot of people, couples especially, drink and have intimate relations. You know, people go out to bars and clubs and they drink and they go home with people and become intimate consensually. Like, I'm not saying that you can never consent to intimate relationships just because you drink. But there's a stark difference between a couple with long established boundaries having some drinks and being intimate, and Anastasia meeting someone for the first time after talking to them through social media, going to their house, seeing they're in a drunken state, and still choosing to make advances onto them while they're blacked out, not knowing what the boundaries were. That is predatory. And Anastasia was sober, by the way. She was sober. And not to mention, at this time, Marcella and Marcy had already come forward publicly with allegations against her. And this interaction between her and Haley took place just a couple weeks following those allegations. Do you know what the very, very last thing I would be doing after I had multiple and SA allegations made against me would be? Coming onto a drunk girl that I just met and not knowing what the boundaries were. At that point, like, even if that person had like just a sip of alcohol, whether they were like mildly drunk or blackout drunk, I wouldn't be laying a finger on that person. I would be on opposite sides of the couch. Yet here Anastasia is in a picture with Haley all over her. And yet Anastasia deemed it okay to cross that boundary and then later admit to it over text, and then uses the Darvo method to reverse the roles against Haley. So yeah, with that context, you can now see why this post sparked a lot of controversy and outrage. And she doubled down on this, and these posts are still publicly available with disabled comments. She is so incredibly spiteful that she will continue to dig her own grave publicly and just silence people who disagree with her, instead of doing what most people would do in that situation and just delete the post. Which I think is pretty revealing of the type of person that Anastasia is. April 30th, she posts another like super odd take.
Hey, sweet pea, so if you think that gender and sex are the same thing, why do you think that it is normal to color code your children so that strangers know what their genitals look like? You know, in my system, one where gender and sex are separate things, dressing your children doesn't let strangers know what their genitals look like, because that's a weird thing for you to want strangers to know about your children. Yeah?
Okay, so I'm just gonna go out on a limb here and say I actually don't think that parents dress their children in certain colors to signal to other people what genitals they have. I do understand she's trying to make the point that gender and sex are not the same. I get that, but I just feel as though this was a very odd way to make that point. And I'm not the only person who felt that way, because if you read the comments, a lot of people were also calling her out for this weird take. One comment with 117 likes reads, "Normal people don't think about children's lower regions at all." And another says, "Pookie, this is a really odd take, but I still love you. Hey Pookie, she's an and a predator, wake up." Another comment with 109 likes reads, "Imagine comparing a little girl wearing pink to wanting strangers to know what it looks like downstairs." Another one, "We don't imagine or think about children's lower regions. I'm not arguing about your point, but when there's children, I'm not thinking about private parts." Don't get me wrong, there were people agreeing with Anastasia as always, you know, because again, this is a cult, but a lot of the top comments, or a lot of the top like comments, were disagreeing with her. I also did take a look at the subreddit to see their responses, and they also pointed out how bizarre this was. One comment sarcastically states, "I'll dress my child in yellow from now on so that they are safe from P3DOs." Exactly. Like, she's trying to paint this as parents dressing their kids in pink and blue as predatory, when it's not. And FYI, I just want to point out, a lot of people that are criticizing this don't agree with having to uphold specific gender roles, and they also agree that gender and sex are not the same. So these aren't like conservatives that are like, oh, there's only two genders, male and female. Like, no, these are people that agree with the concept that gender and sex are not the same thing, who also agree that having to uphold certain gender roles, especially through, you know, your personal style and appearance, is toxic. They agree with that. I think the criticism here is pretty valid, honestly. Like, gender and sex are not the same. Yes, I agree with that. I just really don't think parents are color coding their children's clothes to signal to people what private parts they have. I think most parents are just kind of used to upholding traditional gender roles when it comes to clothing and appearance. I really think that's as deep as it goes. But also, I'm sorry, like, in my personal opinion, I don't know of many kids who exclusively wear pink and blue, right? Like there's plenty of girls' clothes that I've seen that are red and yellow and orange and blue. I mean, sure, like maybe less boys wear pink, like, okay, sure, maybe. But even so, I do feel like if you were to go into like the average children's classroom in a school, you're gonna see a variety of different colors of clothing with the children. So yeah, overall a bit odd, a bit bizarre of a take in my opinion, but let me know if you guys feel the same or not, because I don't really know if this is a common mentality. Okay, so then we get to May. This is where it gets very interesting, because Anastasia starts posting quite a bit of content related to patriarchy and feminism. And more specifically, she's kind of starting to enter like a men's rights activist era. On May 5th, she told on herself again, of course saying cis women make false allegations.
The really harsh truth that nobody wants to admit is that cis women making accusations has and continues to reinforce the patriarchy and many other hierarchies present in our country.
Comments did not disappoint, thankfully. I'm actually surprised she left most of these up. They're calling her right out. Okay, so this is when it starts to enter the men's rights activist territory. So there's a few posts like this. I'm just gonna play a few of them in a row and then I'll give you my response.
Hey, Sweet Pea, so blaming men for a system that they were born into makes as much sense as blaming women for a system that they were born into. And if you think that it is solely men holding up the patriarchy, you like literally have not met very many women, okay? There is a huge number of women who benefit from the patriarchy and uphold it, you know, like on their children, right? And on top of that, blaming men for their lower life expectancy and blaming men for their mental health crisis is certainly definitely making them worse and not making them want to fight the patriarchy. If you refuse to let men view themselves as victims of the patriarchy, why on earth do you think that they would ever help you dismantle it? Hey, Sweet Pea, so if you consider yourself a feminist or an egalitarian or in any way you're fighting for liberation or liberation in general, why on earth would you position yourself as an enemy to half of people? And by half of people, I mean men. That doesn't make any sense. You should position yourself as an enemy to power, an enemy to capital, an enemy to the rich, the elderly, the people who actually have the power. Men are half of people, and a significant portion of them didn't do anything to build the world because they are either too young, too poor, or just too separated from society. And you will never change anything if you are making half of people your enemy when there is no reason to make half of people your enemy, right? Like, men's interests would be served by dismantling the patriarchy. It would help their mental health. It would help their suicide rate. So if men want to talk about men's mental health, good. Help them do it correctly. Point out that the reason they feel so alone and the reason they feel such an unbearable burden all of the time is because of the patriarchy. Yeah? Why on earth would you willingly position yourself as an enemy to half of people if you are actually genuinely trying to change anything? That doesn't make sense. They should be your friends and allies, because they are.
Now, if you go to most of these posts, comments have been completely disabled, and it's not hard to understand why. You understand there's a reason why Roe versus Wade was overturned, right? The government is not only trying to get rid of abortion access, they're also trying to get rid of most forms of birth control. And no, it's not because they're pro-life. It's because if women have no control over their bodies and their reproductive rights, they are forced to rely on men for survival. Men do not want to align themselves with us and dismantle the patriarchy, Anastasia. They want to uphold the patriarchy and retreat back to a time where women were entirely subservient to men. You know, back when America was great. You sit here and you say, why are you positioning yourself against men instead of the people in power? Who do you think the people in power are, Anastasia? Who do you think the people in power are? Who? You are, like, this is so incredibly tone deaf, and you deserve to get clowned on for this. You do. I can't harp on this subject for too long, or else I'll just get really angry, so let's just move on. May 13th posts a reel about love bombing.
Hey, sweet pea. So are they love bombing you, or are you just not used to people genuinely showing you affection? Because it isn't love bombing for people to just want to display how much they like you and take care of you. It's only love bombing if they strategically deny you affection after getting you used to it in order to get you to do things.
No, it actually is love bombing when it's you, Anastasia. It is. You love bomb and emotionally manipulate your victims before you terrorize and them. On May 16th, she makes a post about how her partner is fat, and I only noted this because the first 4 top comments, which have thousands of likes, are asking if her partner knows that she uses and essays women. Which is a good question, actually. Does she know? I have a very difficult time believing that she doesn't know, since she's the one moderating your live streams, where she will have to filter out comments calling you out for being an abuser and essaying people. And if it is true that she has a kid, I hope to God, a God that I don't believe in, that that kid is not being exposed to you, because you will literally give that child PTSD. Just like you gave your victims PTSD. And in hindsight, with everything that's happened recently, I really do hope that that child is okay and safe, if they exist. May 20th, she makes an incredibly self-unaware post.
Hey, sweet pea. So I didn't know that this needed to be said, but you know you can do things after work. Like, I don't care if you have work. I still want to hang out. I don't know why it's so difficult for me to find anyone who wants to go out of their way at all to, like, make plans with me. Because, like, I'm not particular about what we do. We could go to a park, we could go to dinner, we could go grocery shopping. I have no idea why it is so difficult for me to find adult humans who make plans and then execute them the day that they plan them. Like, why is that unusual? I do that all the time.
Girl, you don't even have a job. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Why don't people want to hang out with me after work? Says the full-time content creator who does nothing all day except post ass takes and abuse women. When I was still working an in-person job, the very last thing I wanted to do after an 11-hour shift with what very little time I had to myself before I had to go in and do it the next day is hang out with people after my shift. And some people have to work upwards of 60 hours a week just to make ends meet in this economy. So, you know, I'm gonna go take a shot in the dark and say that you've probably never worked a full-time job in your life, Anastasia. Like, I can't even imagine you being able to uphold a part-time job, honestly. Like, you just don't have the coping skills to be able to deal with the challenges that come with having a job and dealing with customers. Like, you don't possess those skills. So I truly cannot imagine you've ever actually worked a job or held down a job in your life. And I think if you did have a job in the past, you would be able to understand why people wouldn't want to spend what little free time they have after work with you to listen to you spew brain rot for hours. Okay, so we're gonna just jump ahead because honestly, most of her posts between now and like the end of June are pretty redundant. Like, you know, she's posting the same stuff about, oh, men are victims, don't believe cis women when they make allegations, the, you know, same old bullshit that I really don't have the patience for. So then we get to June 21st, where Anastasia announces that she is engaged. She also announces that she's polyamorous, which, you know, whatever, we already knew that, but then says monogamy is the same as ownership.
Hey, sweet pea. So I'm polyamorous and engaged, and if you can't imagine me wanting to sleep with other people without it meaning I love my partner less, then you don't have a definition of love outside of ownership. Like, I'm not saying monogamous relationships are wrong. I'm saying you should be able to imagine a definition of love that isn't owning them. Because that's weird.
And she disabled comments on this one too. Color me shocked. But guess what? This engagement didn't last very long. In fact, it lasted a mere few days before it all fell apart, which was inevitable and honestly not surprising in the slightest. But this is when it actually gets really dark, because there were some live stream clips that were taken following the whole ending of the engagement, where Anastasia kind of cryptically explains what took place and why things fell apart.
Like she met me. And who I was a person who talked about their life on the internet, right? That's who I was. I'm still that. She's mad at me for being who I am. which is like, off, actually, X, like, because you fucking left me after proposing, you know, because she cannot communicate her needs, ever. She doesn't like me being online? No, she doesn't like me being online, and she specifically doesn't like me doing this, which means talking about my life at all, because it involves her, and she's a narcissist. So anytime anything makes her feel bad about herself, she blames me entirely instead of accepting any responsibility, even though nobody here knows who the she is. Do you know who she is? Do you know who she is? No, you don't. You don't know who she is. So like, and do you know how many times I've tried to block her? I've blocked her entire family. Like, and I never say I never say any specifics about her. And yeah, that is who I was when we met. Why the f did you think I was going to be a different person? Why did you think I was going to be a different person? Yeah, if you know someone talks about their life and you don't online and you don't want to be talked about, don't get into that person's life. If you know someone who talks about everything in their life online, who talks about everything online, and you don't want to be talked about online, don't get into that person's life. Pretty basic stuff, actually. You know, in the same way that if you don't want a girlfriend who is a porn star, don't date porn stars.
But what people noticed about this live stream is that while Anastasia is talking about what happened, someone comments in the live stream chat and makes some very alarming allegations. They allege that Anastasia lunged on top of them, called them a and spit in their face. Remember earlier where I mentioned how Anastasia had done that spitting motion towards Marcella, the first person that came forward? Yeah, I think this is a pattern of behavior. And FYI, I said this in my previous video, but in a lot of states, it's actually considered assault to spit on someone. And as it turns out, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where Anastasia resides currently, it is considered assault and battery to spit in someone's face. And there is another comment from this person stating Anastasia had been drinking, which is unsurprising because, as I said before, she is an alcoholic. Now, we don't technically know who this person is, but there is quite a bit of speculation that this may be Anastasia's partner, Sarah. And let's be real, all signs point to that likely being the case. It would be extremely odd for, like, just a random person to make allegations like that, especially when Anastasia is literally talking about their relationship struggles. And on top of that, we know that Sarah moderates her live stream, so the fact that this comment went through likely means that the chat was not being moderated, which even more so supports the argument that this is Anya's partner. But I think the most overwhelming piece of evidence that supports this possibility is Anastasia's recent arrest. Yes, she was arrested. And guess what this sweet pea was arrested for? Just take a guess. I'll give you a few seconds. You ready? You ready for it? Domestic assault and battery of a pregnant woman and resisting arrest. The way that my jaw dropped on the floor when I saw this, it's not that I'm surprised. Like, the signs were there 100%, and, you know, it was only a matter of time before something like this happened. But a pregnant woman, assault and battery of a pregnant woman. So she was booked in the Tulsa County Sheriff's Office on July 8th and was released on bail on the 10th, so she's out currently, which is terrifying. And once again, many people have speculated that this may be Anastasia's partner, Sarah, who was the victim of these. It is domestic battery in a which would make it a case of DV. And considering, what we believe to be Sarah in the live stream chat, it would make a lot of sense if these were the circumstances. Now, in all fairness, Anastasia did state that she was polyamorous and sleeping with other people, so it is also possible that this could just be another partner of hers. We don't have enough information currently to verify if that's actually the case. And another thing I wonder too is perhaps maybe this was the result of Anastasia spitting in Sarah's face, as again, it is considered assault and battery to spit in someone's face in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I do hope that this was the case, and not that spitting on someone is okay, but at least if that was the scenario, then we know that at least her and the child are okay and safe from harm and not physically injured, likely. But again, we really don't know. This literally just happened 2 days prior to me filming this video. And Anastasia has been completely radio silent on all of her social media since the beginning of July.
Where they physically won't let you do the thing that they're asking you to do, and because you didn't do the thing that you're physically unable to do, they'll charge you with resisting arrest. You should never trust resisting arrest as a legitimate charge, because it is never a legitimate charge. Which one? Not sure what you mean. There were no charges.
So we're honestly just gonna have to wait and see if more information comes out. I did see a lot of people in the Reddit talking about possibly obtaining the body cam footage. And I will say, I would be very interested in that, especially knowing that the other charge she got was resisting arrest. If anyone knows how I would go about obtaining that material and could point me in the right direction, that would be super, super helpful. Look. She is escalating. She is escalating, and she is doing so very quickly. In just less than 6 months, she went from verbally and emotionally abusing Marcella to essaying Marcy and Haley, and now domestic assault and battery of a pregnant woman who is likely to be her current partner, Sarah. If this continues to escalate, this is going to have a deadly outcome. I don't want to come on here and say I told you so. That is not appropriate at all. There's a time and place. This is not the time and place for that. But to all the people who continued to support Anastasia after Marcella and Marcy and Haley all came forward, I just want to ask, do you believe them now? Is this enough for you now? Is this what it takes for you to open your fucking eyes? I realize a lot of people just didn't know. I get that, but a lot of people did. A lot of people watched my videos. A lot of them did. I mean, not like millions of people, don't get me wrong, but I'm not saying those videos got millions of views, but when you take into consideration that Anastasia's largest platform has over 300,000 followers, and between my two videos, between both of them, the views collectively were over 300,000, that still reached a pretty wide audience of people. A lot of people knew and still chose to support her. A lot of people victim blamed the victims and still attempted to minimize her actions. A lot of people bought into the cis woman making false allegations against a trans person bullshit. I just hope that this is enough now. I just hope that this is enough for you all now. I just hope that we can all mutually, collectively, universally agree that this person needs to be deplatformed. I just made a video about Peach Aura, and as much as I kind of despise her actions, especially in regards to the racism and the way she misrepresents the BPD community, it absolutely baffles me how quick people were to completely cancel Peach Aura and call for her deplatforming, but yet for months, Anastasia is still able to continue to grow online despite the public allegations with proof. And now it's undeniable. Now it's irrefutable, right? Like there is no way to defend this. How are you gonna sit here and defend this sweet pea against domestic assault and battery of a pregnant woman? How are you gonna do it? How are you gonna do it? You can't. fucking can't. And I'm sorry, but look at this fucking smirk on Anastasia's face right here. And I know there's gonna be those comments of people like, oh, she's not smirking, you're misrepresenting her, you're just trying to dogpile on her. First of all, shut your bitch ass up, because that's a fucking smirk. That is a smirk. This is a smirk. She is proud. She has no shame. This is fucking evil. This is evil. Anastasia, Anyathena, Lexity is a monster who needs to be deplatformed before she eventually kills somebody. I truly hope that day never comes. I do. And to everyone out there, I just want to say, know the signs. Know the warning signs. This is a cautionary tale right here. The warning signs were always there. They were always there. Abusive behavior doesn't make me an abuser. The signs were there. If you see these behaviors, even to a small degree, in any of your own situations, get out now. Get out now and save yourself, because it will escalate. It will not get better. It will only get worse, and you may lose your life as a result. Well, you guys, that's all I got for you. I was not prepared for that ending, to be honest. I had started working on this video just a few days before this whole thing dropped, and you know, I am sorry that I couldn't end this on a lighter note, but it is what it is. Hopefully now we will see less of Anastasia online, and hopefully she will be behind bars soon where she belongs. But yeah, thank you all for listening. I hope you all have a lovely day or night depending on where you are, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.